All right, so Zombie Liars in Hell by Jay Wilburn. This is the true and factual chronicle of the acts of our Lord and Savior John Grief after he woke up in hell. John remembered the angels. He had only vague recollections of dying, but he recalled them leading him out naked from the funeral home. He expected heaven. He certainly didn't think he deserved it after a life lived so well in sin. But he also never really bought into an afterlife. So when all those naked angels showed up for him, he figured all was forgiven. Well, that's not how it went. John took a long moment to lift himself off the hot lava rock. He could almost convince himself that he'd woken up in Hawaii, but he had his suspicions where he really was. Even right there at the beginning. Alright, that is not how that is spelled. Alright, there we go. He was dead, but he was still fresh. Very little rot had set in. There were some discolorations on his skin and dark fluids gathered in his swollen feet. All in all, he thought he still looked okay for a walking corpse in hell. What next? He thought he might like to find some clothes. He wasn't ashamed or anything he was packing. He had made a good living with his equipment, even into older age. He also had the good sense to move behind the camera and start keeping more of the money. What the other folks in the industry, there's a double word there, in the industry did not know about him was that he started writing books a few years before he died under the name Walter Evil. He wrote splatterpunk stories and extreme horror. Alright, let me do a new sentence here. And some of the books got popular. A few got optioned. One was in pre-production. Life was looking good, so of course this was when his ticker finally gave out. John had no real way to track life in the living world after he was hellbound. But he guessed his stories got some real attention they deserved after he was gone. All right. John was not alone out on this spit of rock in the midst of the sea of molten heat. This guy wore a suit despite the heat. This new squirrely looking guy wore a suit despite the heat. In the squirrely guy's defense, he had been in hell for a while, and hell plays hell on a person's skin. Give a guy a break, would you? All right. More rot had set into this fellow, so maybe he had been there a bit longer. Holes in his cheeks opened onto rows of straight teeth that were still shiny white. One eye sunk lower than the other. It gave the fellow a stupid, sleepy look. One side of his nose had collapsed. The other side of his mouth drooped where the lips were split and blackened. Something oily leaked out from one side of the stranger's body, turning the suit slimy and glistening down the pant legs. Okay, that's enough of that. First of all, it's gross. Second of all, it's mean to someone who would play such an important part of the story. Let's just let the guy's appearance go for now and move on with the action. That's far enough, John ordered, trying to sound braver than he felt. The guy held up his hands in a calming gesture that didn't really work when the guy trying to calm you was dead but still walking around in a lava field. My name is Gus Gantry, Pastor Gus Gantry, but that part don't matter much anymore. John snorted at that and it hurt his throat. Something cold and foul broke loose back there and he forced himself to swallow it down. Weren't much of a pastor if you're down here with me, Gus. Gus smiled, splitting his lips even further. He'd be a comic book villain if he didn't stop that. He'd be looking like a comic book villain if he didn't stop that. Again, in his defense, there's no chapstick down here. All right. No argument here, partner. I was a poser in life. I had it all wrong, but here we are, and I'm supposed to guide you. Which religion was right then? Was right then, Gus. Hell if I know. Doesn't matter now that we're here. So back to the guiding. Guide me to eternal damnation? I don't think so. Gus shrugged and part of his suit came loose at the seam. His skin was a bad color and texture underneath. Well, you're already here. Might as well get settled in unless you're happy with this spot. In that case, I'll leave you be. What other options are there? Gus tilted his head and something popped in his neck. The stuff from that boil flew out far enough to sizzle in the bubbling magma. Sure. This all sounds gross, but you'll see how things are when you get down here too. There are a few camps. There's always work to be done. They might conscript you at some point. Then, of course, every place has a boss. Up there, down here, everywhere, in between. All shitty bosses telling you to do what you don't want to. Who's the boss down here, Gus? Gus shook his head slowly. You know the answer to that. Come on. A real-life devil. John had bet against all that nonsense. But now here he was in hell, following Pastor Gus over the rocky slopes away from the sea of fire. The sharp stone hurt his feet. He felt the heel of one foot tear, and he suspected that wasn't going to get better. He suspected right. At least some of that collected fluid in his legs seeped out, and the swelling went down a bit. I need some shoes and clothes, John grunted. Good luck with that. You have a suit on. Are you going to steal mine? I don't think it's your size. By the way, I didn't catch your name, friend. John Grief. And I prefer something less leaked on, no offense. Wait until you've been here a while and you'll see. They topped the rocky ridge, and there was motion through the winding road in the next valley. Several souls were chained together as large creatures wearing armor and with leathery wings folded behind their backs whipped the prisoners along the way. Let's say those were demons. We're in hell. So those are demons with the whips being described there. You'll see one day. All right. Gus said, we should hold up until they pass. You don't want any part of that business. Where are they going? Let me fix the guy's name. Gus hummed a moment and then said, that way leads to the mines and then the castle beyond that. Whose castle? Come on, John. Don't be dense. John started down the hill. He did that a lot. Still does. Always going headlong into everything. But that's why he's John Grief, and that's why this chronicle is being written. Let me fix this spelling real quick. Nope. Alright. That's why this chronicle is being written. You don't write books about cowards who stay up on the hill until the danger has passed, like they're told to do. What are you doing, man? They'll take you too. Say Gus tried to warn. Just come on, Gus. You're my guide. Guide me. I'm trying to. Gus followed him down the slope at a slight distance. But you won't listen to me. John stepped into the lines of chained slaves farther down from the nearest demon guard. Most of these folks were naked too. Their skin had grayed with decay that never brought the sweet relief of death. When he bumped them trying to make his way around, their flesh broke away in sheets, dropping dark bones and shriveled organs underneath all those passing feet. He found one skeletal woman wearing a flowery dress that still looked remarkably clean. She opened her jaw with a creaking sound as if to bite. John mostly from reflex through a punch. The skin over his knuckles split, but her head came clean off her shoulders and bounced away into the rusty sands on the other side of the road. Her head may be still sitting out there to this day. Someone should really go check on that. Her headless, skeletal body kept walking along with the others still in their chains. John, are you out of your mind? We haven't been spotted yet. Let's go. Hold on. He inspected her chains and found that she was shackled at the wrist, ankles, and the waist. All right, I got the comma in the wrong place. He couldn't get her out of those bonds, but if the rest of her bones were as loose as her head, he started kicking and chopping her. Sure enough, her bones broke loose at the joints and fell out of the bottom of the dress. The other gray prisoners behind her stumbled and tripped over her remains. Seriously. Someone should go out there and see if she's okay. One of the whips cracked and then snapped again, much closer. Gus called, "They're coming. Come on, would you?" To his credit, Pastor Gus did not cut and run without John. John pulled the empty dress, and this was a scary moment, too. All right. John pulled the empty dress loose from the chains, shook it out, and then pulled it over his head. He's gotten better clothes since then, but had to wear that dress through everything that followed in this story. Keep that in mind because it makes everything a little more impressive as a result. It was a little snug and a bit stiff with the filth on the inside, but he wasn't naked anymore. The material was a little hot for this environment, but he decided to make do. Then the whip snapped close to his face. Gus whined, "Oh hell." John grabbed the whip on the next attack. And played tug-of-war with the demon. The creature pulled him out of the crowd and growled at John in an ancient tongue he did not understand. Let's say, demons are always speaking in old languages because they think it makes them sound cooler. You wouldn't believe how insecure those guys are. Those guys really are. John ran at the monster instead of away. The creature tried to step on him, but John tripped him up with his own whip, and then the demon whined as he ran away on all fours. The other demons approached, and on all fours, extra chains and keys flying everywhere. The other demons approached And Gus said, "You've really done it now." "You haven't seen anything yet," John said as he adjusted the hem of his dress. The demons came in swinging, but clearly they were not prepared for resistance. John whirled and snapped his new whip, driving them away. The last demon tripped twice during his retreat, and John caught up with him. The demon begged for mercy in broken English, but John ignored it as he stripped the creature of its sandals. Let's say he then slapped it on its demon butt, and it ran away. Let's say the footwear was a bit on the large side, but he cinched them up. "What now?" Gus asked. "We're in big trouble. We're in hell. How much more trouble can we get in?" "Oh, you just wait, John. They specialize in punishment here." John realized the entire time a line of prisoners had stopped and were staring. He cleared his throat and announced, "You guys want to help me with something?" There was silence in response, but he took that as agreement. "Gus, help me find the keys." That's how it all began. All right. Moving along. The mines were places of torment and suffering. The demons in charge were used to the cries of agony. It was like a white noise machine to them. Sometimes they dozed off to it. They ignored all that as they continued to fill out the mountains of endless paperwork that always seemed to pile up in hell. People think paperwork on Earth is awful, but you've not seen anything yet. It gets so much worse down here. Okay. They only looked up when the screams finally got louder than usual, and a few of them sounded triumphant. Well, they couldn't have that. It took them a while to get out because the knobs on the office doors were always seemed to get stuck. They thought it might have something to do with the materials expanding in the heat. As the doors swung open, they witnessed hell falling apart. Towers toppled and broke upon the hard rocks. Outbuildings exploded and shrapnel fell everywhere. Other demons fled the scene as thousands upon thousands of souls charged the offices. Of course, now that the doors were open, they wouldn't close back into their frames. The formerly tormented souls forced their way inside to deal out some torture of their own. As the demons were taken down and torn apart, the name that was repeated over and over was John Grief. This was super cool. You would have had to have been there, but trust me, so cool. All right. Gus stared out the window of the train as it rolled toward the great castle. Countless people from all ages of man filled the cars, clung to the outsides, and sat upon the roofs. He said, "I don't know, John. This seems like a bad idea. No offense, Gus, but I don't know what you had to offer me in hell was much of an option at all. I don't know that what else you had to offer me in hell was much of an option at all." He had a point, but this was still a really risky move. Everyone thinks they're going to take over hell when they get there. most of them curl up and cry for their mothers. You keep saying no offense, but I'm not sure you mean it. All right. John shrugged. Can you get us inside? The train will take us straight in, but then you have to face him and all his forces. I say face the boss and all the castle's forces. All right. I'm not terribly impressed so far. I think they might keep the better ones around the castle. The castle, though. All right, moving right along. We'll see. What's the worst that can happen, Gus? Gus shook his head. That's not a question you want to be asking down here. Well, my guess is that they can't kill me twice. The dying never ends down here, John. John snorted, and again he felt damage in his throat. He had to remember to stop doing that. Hell was a dry heat, and it was screwing with his undead sinuses. The castle loomed large around the next curve, and sure enough, just as Gus had told him, the train roared into a broad, dark tunnel under the stony structure. Cheers rose from all over the train. Some of them included chants of John's name. He hadn't exactly told them to do that, but he didn't discourage it either. Commotion rose from the walls above, the walls of the castle. The walls of the castle above, loud enough for John to hear over his own army. They could already tell something wasn't right with today's train. So they could already tell up there something wasn't right with today's train. Gus met his eyes and said, well, they know we're here. John smiled. They should have expected us before now. The train engine echoed through the dark spaces under the castle as it sped onward. John's eyes wavered. Where's the station? Gus's eyes got wide enough to be seen in the darkness, even though they were different sizes. The demons usually run the trains. Do you have anyone up there, up in the engine? Up in the engine, controlling this thing. The sound of the crash carried back through all the cars. Screams filled the darkness as people were thrown off the sides. The cars derailed as they broke. Hold on. As they broke from their connections. Good Lord, I didn't spell anything right in this sentence. And tumbled. John felt like he was rolling forever, eating the elbows and knees of people tumbling around inside the car with him. Oh, Newton, thank you for the subscription. I really do appreciate that. Subscribing with Prime, that's good for both of us. John felt like he was rolling forever, eating elbows and knees of people tumbling around inside the car with him, buried under all that humanity. Let's say, especially with its stinking and rotting. John felt like it took forever to dig and fight his way back out. The tunnel was dimly lit, and the broken train cars blocked the entrance. People were twisted and broken as they quietly moaned in pain. You don't get up from a thing like that in hell. Believe it. No one seemed to have died, though. Maybe that wasn't an option here. No one seemed to have died, though. Let's say because. Because that wasn't an option here. All right. Gus stood next to John with his suit in worse shape than before. Okay, what now? You were my guide. What do you think? I think we never should have tried this. Well, too late for that. Okay, everyone who can still walk, let's see if we can find some stairs. The fighting was heavy up through the winding halls. The place was a maze, and John feared he might be lost in here forever. Finally, they reached the upper floors and found wide, tall doors. John set his remaining army on forcing their way into the throne room that lay beyond. Is this it? John asked. Gus looked around and said, I'm not sure. I've never been here before. I'm shocked we made it this far. The doors buckled and then fell away. The souls of John's fighters rushed in ahead of him. Red light blazed out and seared. I think I did the wrong kind of seared. Seared? Is that right? Seared through many of their bodies. As they fell, they screamed, never dying. There was a moment that John swore they would turn and run, leaving him alone. But they continued forward. They cried the name John Grief as they pulled the former king from his black throne. As they pulled the former ruler from the black throne. The devil was there, but was already in chains. There was a queen on the throne in his place. Who the hell is that? John asked. Gus answered, I believe that is Abigail Penny Ross. John, who the hell is... John paused before going on. Wait. Is that Miss Penny? The children's book author? She defeated the devil before I got here. Why is she even down here? She was super racist in life, Gus said. Even for the 1940s. She was into some weird stuff. Made her staff do weird things while she watched. She's a freaky freak. Even some of the folks down here are creeped out by her. Miss Penny writhed in the hands, writhed in the rotting hands of John's soldiers. She let out a slew, hold on, of racial slurs at everyone around her. Even in hell, that was a bit much. Alright, there we go. Once they had her, and the devil brooding in his corner of the room, John wasn't positive what to do. He looked at Gus, who gave a slight fearful shrug. John swallowed on his dry throat and said, "Bring me some more chains." And that is the true story of how hell changed hands again. John Grief rules the underworld to this day with Pastor Gus by his side. He looks over the gardens, the dance clubs, the mini golf courses, and the various fusion restaurants that have come to be quite popular in his great hold on. Various fusion restaurants that become quite popular in, let's say, the greatness. I don't know what I was trying to say originally. In the greatness of his benevolent reign. He tried to keep Miss Penny around as a warning, but she made everyone super uncomfortable. He ended up sealing her in stone under the castle. Even with that, the demons who run the train can still hear her spitting and cussing down there sometimes. They had to put up signs apologizing and warning everyone. And by his side, just published today's tales are links allowed. Are links allowed? Yeah, go ahead, Blitzer. That's fine. I didn't understand your question at first. Go ahead and I appreciate you asking before you did it. Go ahead and share your link. After sitting through this many stories, I think you deserve it. They had to put up signs apologizing and warning everyone. And by his side, as a reminder to any who might cross or threaten to hurt his people, the former king, let's say the original king, the former king kneels in his chains beside the new king's throne. At least the devil knows how to be polite. Miss Penny is the worst. I'll check that out later. Miss Penny is the worst. Alright. May Lord John Grief reign forever and ever. Amen.